Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another rousing edition of NFT Sundays. I am Colborn Bell with the Museum of Crypto Art, and I am joined today by the incredible team at Lago Frame. First we have Jackie, and second we have Scott. Beautiful. So, this is how we start every episode. I would love to just hear a bit of background about how you got here. We're going to be talking all things display and NFTs today. So just a little bit about, your background and, the solution that you've brought forward.
Sure. Are we going ladies first? Did we say ladies first?
Let's go ladies first.
Let's go ladies first. Okay, cool. Thank you, gentlemen. Much appreciated. So thank you, Colborn, for having us today. Lovely to be with you. My name is Jackie, and I work with Scott on the partnerships team at Lago, primarily handling artistic and cultural partnerships. My background is artist management, primarily. And in about 2017, I started to get really interested in crypto. And then when the pandemic hit, I had a baby who slept very well. And I sort of had, weirdly, an abundance of time to kind of read and I listened in, and I had many artist friends that I had worked with over the years that said, hey, you've always been such a big champion of artists' rights. NFTs, it's your jam. Get interested. You're going to love it. And I had my husband saying sort of the same thing. So I started to network, and I started to go to conferences, and I started to try and meet some people. And I actually ended up meeting lovely Scott, who spoke on a beautiful panel at the Christie's Art and Tech Conference. And I told him a little bit about my background, where I had come from, that I really liked dealing with artists, and I really sort of wanted to work with a luxury brand in the space and help forge those artistic partnerships. And that's how I land here today.
Super. I love it. Scott, will you regale us?
I think I could do that. Well, first, I wanted to say thank you so much for having myself and Jackie on NFT Sundays, and you guys have been doing a phenomenal job of putting content together. Really interesting people. So I feel honored to be included in your guest list thus far. So thank you.
Pleasure is ours.
Oh man, story, history, how we got here today. I know we have a good amount of time, but I feel like I don't want to bore everyone of the historical.
Read about Scott. Yeah, just read about Scott then. Scott is absolute legend.
Scott's never boring. Scott's a legend.
Scott is an absolute legend. He's done it all from the very beginning. I don't want to tell it. If you don't want to tell it, we'll just tell people to look you up, and we'll jump into what you created. It's been told.
The story has been told. It all starts in 1985. And I was brought into this world. Now,
and the rest is history.
It's done. So no, I like to start primarily in around 2013 when I first learned about crypto. And I was in Union Square in New York City, which, is a really usual place. So you have your normal unusual things that takes place all the time there. And so because of that, it's not so unusual if you know this scene. But one day, I'm walking around, and I took my time always. I would grab some coffee and just observe and enjoy, the farmers market, the craziness, the songs, the chess players, the NYU students, and then just a lot of passerbys. But this one afternoon, there was a group of people standing in a circle, and the way they were doing this back and forth circle motion, I was like, this doesn't seem normal, for the normal that exists right here. And so I went up to this group of people. I'm like, what are you guys doing? What is this? They're like, oh, this is Bitcoin. Do you want one? And so that sort of set me on a path to understand what is Bitcoin, what is decentralization, what is cryptocurrency, what is blockchain technology, and how can this better our existence today? Not only here in this first world country that we live in, that I'm grateful to be a part of, but also in other parts of the world where this can be so much more impactful in a very short period of time. Where I thought I could add value starting off in this ecosystem was more so on the investment side. helping founders raise capital, putting deals together to be able to support the growth at an early stage. And so I ended up joining a really great group. I met this guy named Rick Willard. And Rick Willard had a group called the Agentic Group back in the day. And the Agentic Group was putting speakers together about specifically blockchain technology. And he was bringing people from all around the world to come speak. And this was just a time in my life where I was soaking in information about crypto and blockchain, even to the fact that, and this is completely random, I don't know if anyone knows the company or heard of the company before, called Alpha Point, which was a white labeled exchange. And I'm going to sidetrack here for a second, but I was living in this like 5-story brownstone walk-up, and I was sort of known as like the mayor of the building. It was the railroad station type of buildings where you have 2 units per floor. They each have the side of the floor, and the middle of the building is the staircase going up. Anyways, I was on the 2nd floor, and I saw someone new moving in, and I said, "Hey, let me help you. Let me grab some stuff." Walked him up. He was on like the 5th or 4th floor. Helped move him in. Welcomed him with a bottle of wine to the building. But this is like that early 2013 for me, and I met him right around the same time as I met these guys with the Bitcoin in Union Square. But I swear, this guy, I thought he was Satoshi. The way he was talking about crypto, I thought he was Satoshi. Little did I know that I was in his room helping him hang his whiteboard to draw out ideas of how to create Alpha Point. And so a dear friend of mine now, who also was in my wedding, was the founder of Alpha Point, who helped educate me in this ecosystem tremendously. But anyway, so going back to the Agentic Group, this was a really great spot for me to meet, learn, and help other founders in the space. Fast forward to 2017, 2018, met a lot of great people. And this was a point in time where I could really sink in and add value on the infrastructure side. And I ended up co-founding a company called Portis. Around 2017, 2018, MetaMask was the only Web3 provider at the time. And if you were to ask anyone hey, I want you to try out this really cool dApp, well, first they'd say, what is a dApp? So I would just say app. I really want you to try out this really cool app. And if you send them there, they'd be like, well, how do I use this? Because they were getting kicked out because it asked them to use a wallet and you needed to authenticate. And it took around 10 to 15 minutes for a new person that knew nothing about crypto to even engage. And we were like, there's got to be a better way for new users coming into this ecosystem to have a really smooth onboarding experience similar to Web 2, but still giving, the power of Web 3, of decentralization, of self-custody, of true ownership. And so the company Portis ended up building an SDK, which essentially is a toolkit you give to developers to build into their products. So say I went to a Uniswap for the first time, or an OpenSea, or a Rarible, or Yearn Finance, or Zerion, or MakerDAO, or Gitcoin for the very first time, not having a wallet. Now I can just log in with an email and password. And that encrypted the private keys with end-to-end encryption, sort of like a single sign-on, but also encrypting and creating a wallet at the same time. You weren't locked into any browser, any device. It was a cloud-based experience across everything Web 2. And so Portis sort of pioneered early on user experience for dApps, especially with like fiat on-ramping, going cross-chain, supporting NFTs in 2018, supporting fiat on-ramps from credit card to crypto, credit card to NFTs in 2018. We were the first wallet to support Matic Network before they were Polygon. And, I could go on the Portis side. Long story short, years later, we were acquired. And we were acquired by Shapeshift, which is a company created by Eric Voorhees, another tremendous individual in this space. If you don't know who he is, I would recommend look up Eric Voorhees and his history. Very interesting and very, ethical human being that has really pioneered how the exchange business was done. And I would say was an inspiration for Uniswap. And so during that and after that acquisition, friends who were artists, curators, and collectors, like Scott, you've been supporting NFTs for so long. There's got to be a better way for collectors, not only within our ecosystem, the OGs, but also these blue chip collectors from Christie's and Sotheby's and Phillips. There's got to be a way for them to really enter the space and diversify, their traditional art portfolio into minted works of art and beyond their phone and a computer. I was like, that's really interesting. That's a really big problem. Sure, let's look into this. Saw there was no solution that was worthy enough of these blue chip collectors to have in their homes and their galleries and these institutions. So I thought I would put a team together and go and create that, which leads us here today talking about NFTs for NFT Sunday, and spending our time with Colborn and Jackie.
All to say that you are incredibly early and you are incredibly visionary, and there's so many little tidbits from that story that I am dying to pull out. For me, right, there's a couple things about NFTs that are critically important. One is the visual language that it's communicating compared to the intangibility of a Bitcoin or, an Ethereum or just that number in the wallet. You are identifying and connecting with that visual, and it becomes very much a part of you and your identity. And I think by proxy of that, it also teaches people about self-custody, about true ownership, the ability to access liquid markets, global open access markets, the ability for artists to onboard and upload their creativity. When you were, I guess, designing Lago Frame, because you approach it very philosophically, what was the philosophical implication of creating a display?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I love human beings more than most things in life. And I tend to come at things less even on the technology side, but more so on the human side in all things I try to approach. I say this often, and I'm sure many have heard this, but I look at my phone here and I have conversations with people about, art and technology, and, they ask me, well, what's built into the chipset of blah? I'm like, they're all fascinating questions. We can get into that. But let me ask you, do you know the chipsets that are in this phone? Do you understand how the internet actually works? And a lot of the people we speak to actually know how the internet works, just for the sake of the industry that we've been in and these developer ecosystems. But for the general population, they don't, and they don't care. They want a good user experience. They want to do things where it adds value to their life and it has meaning to them. And so I wanted to take that same approach for Lago, where I wanted to build community. I wanted to be able to build something that, one, enabled them to enjoy what they enjoy most. They as those that are any purchaser of a minted works of art. And I wanted to be able to bring enjoyment into their community, to have different type of emergence of art, technology, and community in one, and how it can be engaged. On top of that, I wanted to make sure that ownership was still represented without the crazy steps having to take to go to Etherscan to get that metadata, to retrace it back. I wanted to make all that invisible. At the heart of it, the one answer is love, right? Because that's what I love most, is human beings. And so when we thought of how to create Lago, it stems from the love of community, the love of art, the love of technology, and how we merge those into one experience. And then we could get into how I personally think we envision that, and how the buyers and collectors can also engage.
What I want to run with is that, when I was beginning to put these artworks in metaverse environments, how critically important to me it was that there was that token that was represented, because anybody could, of course, upload a JPEG, an MP4 into those environments, display those environments. But for me, that was not true ownership. So, what Somnium Space allowed me to do that was just pivotal was for somebody to go in, read the wallet, and understand that that artwork was actually part of the museum's collection, click on it, see the artist, see the description, and because of, your wallet background, I think it's just so absolutely critical that you've baked in so many of these features of true ownership into this frame. So I'd love for you just to touch on that for a bit, if you could.
Yeah, of course. From the wallet side, I think without getting into the engagement side, there are three core areas which I wanted to make super simple. The first is the authenticity and the provenance, which is key and which is so special that we can do because everything that we represent on Lago is on-chain. And because it's on-chain, we're able to pull that information from Etherscan and other services and representing that back on a card in a certificate fashion that can appear and disappear on demand for the art. And, you know, for beginners that are coming into the space that may want to have a frame like Lago but don't have a large collection yet, that's okay. Even though we enable you to, you know, log in with any wallet, a key component to Lago is, you know, this curation aspect. Trusting in the curation of tastemakers such as Museum of Crypto Art, such as others, that if you're curious, these entities will curate experiences of what they think is influential for the time being, and you'll be able to click into that and see and have that on your frame without owning it, which I think is really important to bring new people into this space without having, you know, thousands of pieces of works or, you know, tens of dozens of pieces of NFTs. Because first you have the curious and then you have your buyers. But what I enjoy most of the authentication and on-chain aspect is now you can see the ownership in a certificate as well of who actually owns that. And you don't get the full experience of if you were the owner of that piece, but you get to enjoy a taste of that piece. And you get to see the provenance, the historical pricing, where it was at prior to, how the NFT has traveled, who currently owns it, and really dive into that information, but in a way that's presented to you without having to do it.
I absolutely love that, and I want to kick it over to Jackie, if you could please, like, tell us, because I am personally not like very envious of your position. I imagine it's very difficult to begin to like approach people and for partnerships and begin to kind of like explain all of these new features and this new world. And you know, you're in New York City, which is such obviously an entrenched traditional art city. I'm curious, you know, which points with people that you speak with are really resonating, and what are the places where people are still confused?
So Scott and I actually have one thing. I mean, we have many things in common, but we share a mutual love of people and actually of listening to people. And I find with partnerships specifically, and I learned this over many years of being an agent, right? Because you always find yourself in this middle spot where you have different groups of people working towards a mutually beneficial common goal, but they don't always see the path the same way. So I find that if you listen to people, like really truly listen to them, there's an abundance of information that you can catch. So I kind of approach all partnerships always from that angle, like try and listen to what the pain points are, how I can help, how I can break things down, and how I can make them easy. Excuse me one second. And I think the thing that I find people get most excited about is actually our gesture control. So like with the Lago, you know, if you're an artist, a creator, or a collector, you have both the ability to create a piece of work and know that it's going to be displayed the way that you want it displayed from the artist perspective and also from the collector perspective. So you know that what you're buying and what you're showing in your frame is exactly as it's intended to be. So that I always find that part of the conversation gets people super excited. And then also, you know, we have a frame sort of around the display which is customizable, which obviously gets people super excited as well, from the artist to the collector, even to the brand partnerships, because they know that they're getting something bespoke for them, and what's landing in their home or their space is exactly how it's intended to be.
Yeah, I've seen these frames. They are just like exceptional quality. We thank you so much for like bringing them to us. Maybe you've been just everywhere crushing it. So, you know, maybe just shout out some of the early partners who've been using it, what they've been doing with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so actually last night we did an activation with Super Rare and Tagliatella at their space in Chelsea, where we showed Super Rare curated a collection of Genesis pieces, and Tagliatella actually also added in 3 newer works from artists that they represent. So Super Rare has actually been a pretty nice partner to us. And we're working on a couple of interesting things, which I can't reveal just yet, which are very exciting. We've done activations at Denver. We're going to be over to Portugal next week, Freeze LA. I think with every sort of first partnership step that we take, we really try and think a lot about the ethos of Lago, the brand, the environment, the setup. You know, we built a luxury product and we want to make sure that it's viewed in a luxurious way. So just like really kind of like paying attention to all of the details is super important to us.
And go ahead, please.
I just want to say that although we haven't done any exhibitions yet with the Museum of Crypto Art, I consider them family to us in the way that the ethics that you hold in the ecosystem are so important. And I envision a lot of different future collaborations.
Well, look, you know, we've both been around since 2017. You know, there's people that make it and there's people that make money. And if you don't kind of ground it in some like deep philosophy, you only have one reputation. Yeah. We saw a lot of people kind of burn it up front. And this is going to be a hectic, volatile market, right? But the need for display, as we continue to push forward with metaverse technologies, AR, VR, the ability to have it in your home, to see it, to be proud of it, to abstract it from your phone or your computer screen is monumental. And everywhere that I've been, for the most part, I have been very disappointed to see Samsung screens like turned on their side and saying like, this is art. Because for me, no, that's a television in which I've been programmed my whole American life to receive like mindless dribble. So I think the focus on, the focus on like a high quality product and frame to speak to the value. What. Yeah, please.
Here's where I am thankful for Samsung though. And, I think you and I don't want to speak for you, but potentially can agree upon is that even though I came from the DEX world and truly decentralization and self-sovereignty, the same reason why I was thankful for Coinbase, especially when they first came in the market, is because they did such an education game. They did such an education push. And it brings new people completely who know nothing about anything into the space, curious, they dabble, they either stay within the custodial side or they push it further and then they enter into the decentralization side.
Yeah.
I think the same pattern is going to happen with Samsung. So I'm thankful that they're going to be doing a huge education push. They have a lot of money to do that with. And, there will be plenty of people that are going to be very happy with their Samsung product and that will be happy searching around on their TV, football, watching their, housewives and then going to their NFT collection. And that's okay. I'm thankful for that. But then there will be those that will do that, are not satisfied in the sense that, hey, I want to become a real collector. I really love this. I want to have something worthy of my collection, and then they could venture off and find products like Lago, and or maybe they may see something in a gallery and like, ooh, that's very interesting. So although I agree with you, Colborn, on how I personally feel when I walk into a gallery in our early days of these experiences, I still think, and I'm thankful for that they're entering the space, because how much harder it would be for you and I doing our education, going to galleries and speaking with them. But now we have these big conglomerates coming into the space, validating our thoughts and experiences. But now we can maybe shine that light and show them the manner of which it should be done.
And I thank you for checking me because I'm such a critic, right? And I just like want to be exponential now, and I always forget that it's stepping stone. Right, and it takes.
We've been in it for so long, you and I both, and the fires that you have in your soul and that you are, it's like time comprehension is so far out, but we're so far back, and we need to sort of pace ourselves to that line, and it's challenging.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it was just funny to me to see last minute scrambling for Basel, people running to Best Buy, like buying every screen they could. But it's just, we see how incredibly important it is that we turn this movement experiential. And, I think what crypto was always so good at in the beginning was, of course, like bringing people together. And this, these screens and art in general, it brings people together and it invites different opinions and it allows people to have like diverse conversations. And it's just like a tenet of the blockchain community. And I feel like society, it doesn't welcome it as much as I wish it should. So I just love the way you guys are like recentering the art and the conversation, and bringing these for people to experience. It's just incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, just like the creativity of the developers of what they create in the open source economies. I get that excited about opening up our APIs for creators to control our hardware. I mean, like last night, there's this beautiful piece. Okay, Joe Irado has this really cool physical piece of this wooden ship with an octopus tentacles over it. And for his first NFT, he has the ship with the tentacles over it. And it's like it's a layered video of a frozen lake or body of water with the cracked water and the boat bobbing back and forth with this gentle snow coming down. And in the captain's quarters in the ship, where he's the captain driving, there's like these lights flickering and going off. And as I was explaining to someone who was mesmerized by it, I was like, imagine if you were to use our APIs to control the hardware here, maybe the snow would get more violent the louder the room got. Or maybe the quieter the room got, the snow got more peaceful. And like, it enables the art to be reactive and creative based on the environment. Or maybe, there's another piece that had this open sign on it. And maybe in this piece, you actually use our gesture control. And if you get this right gesture sequence, it unlocks something and opens and it gives you access to this next pass of whatever you want for the community. Or maybe access to be the first person to buy the artist's next piece. Or maybe I have 4 frames in a row, and as I walk by it, the piece follows me from frame to frame to frame. Or maybe like, based on my breathing and my heart rate changes, it changes the art. I mean, there are so many different limitless permutations that can be done that will create conversations, will create dinner, engagements. It's almost like, in some cultures, they sit around and smoke hookah together. In some cultures, they sit around and, have wine together. This is going to be a new frontier of art culture, of conversation, and how limits are going to be pushed, that we go beyond a display. We physically become a canvas for the creators to create upon in a metaphysical way. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and that really gets me exciting.
Okay, yeah, like we could talk about this, like, for the rest of time, because this is incredibly exciting to me as well. A couple examples, like, I think everybody is feeling kind of the tiredness of like JPEG attached to token, right? Generative art has been getting people excited because of stuff like this, because it is a random, or it's, a controlled output with random variation. I saw something very cool from an artist on our artist council, Fabien Rashid, in which he built a program to craft 3D sculptures based on his heartbeat. Right. So, and then of course, like what we're working on the museum with stuff like the virtual curator, right? Where you have an AI machine learning group brain that is aggregating information about piece history, piece story, and in which you can begin to have a conversation with the frame and have it tell you, who is this artist? What is this about? And for me, that is just a totally next frontier that I'm really, really excited to explore, and know that you guys are just baking in a ton of tech, again, to open up those APIs and allow developers to really kind of like hack the frame. So just very cool. Yeah.
It's experiential. It's exciting.
It is. It really is. I mean... And to bring it into like one's own home is next frontier. I remember like going to Super Blue again in Miami, and there was a big screen on the wall in which you walked, and it was raining, but it would sense you were there and like block out the rain from you. And then as you moved away, like flowers would grow behind you. It's just incredible where
And
we're
those
going.
experiences there, those cost, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to create that level. Yet, we're creating something with the same technology, if not a little more, but condensed into an at-home package, which you can experience and much more personalized, that, I don't know, I get a little emotional and tied up because I can't wait to have this product at its full performance with the art that will be created for it and with it. And it's only a matter of time once we release into the world and how that will change and what will change with it.
Super, super exciting. Do you want to tell us just kind of like strict hardware specs? Because I know like sourcing hardware is incredibly difficult. I know it's like, square frame and processors, but you guys have like cracked this code, I think, in a way that few have.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the way we look at it right now is, we have our square frame, which when you walk into a room, you're going to know it's not a TV, which we think is very important. But more so, one thing we know we're never going to compete in is we're never going to be the Samsungs, the LGs of the world. We're never going to be able to compete in like the 8K, 920, 40, 50K, whatever it's going to crazily be, and for the mass production that these TV suppliers can create. However, where we focus on is that true engagement, and we focus on the true NFT optimized resolutions that to the eye is better than best, and from microphones to camera sensors to IP location, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, so that things can be based on your location, whether it's the sunrise, the sun setting, the lunar cycles can all be programmatic into it. It's partnered with the Master and Dynamic sound bar, so the sound quality is extremely high. And so Jonathan Levine, who's one of our co-founders, he has been building hardware for 25 plus years, partnerships with Louis Vuitton and Lamborghini and other very high-end brands. And so the level, and this is actually funny, I was at Pace Gallery having a conversation with them early on when Lago was just an idea, and we didn't have the physical piece yet. We knew we were building it, but nothing was physical yet. They bring us up to a room, and in this room, they had Master and Dynamic, a very high, like this special soundboard and speaker system. And not only was it with me, but I was with Jonathan. And so we're laughing like, haha, see, you already have our equipment. And, now you know the level of quality we're going to continue to build. So that was a very entertaining moment.
Jackie, tell me, where are like the dream places that you want to get these frames into? Like,
My gosh, I mean,
The church.
the church, yes.
we gotta get some into the church,
Kingston?
definitely. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like the marquee gallery partnerships are something that are really important to us. So, the Pace, the Hauser, the Zwerner, the everything that's sort of happening in that world, the auction houses are, we've been having conversations with. I mean, there are so many artists that we're having exciting conversations with that I'm super, super excited to work with. So, I think the thing about this market is like, it's a new collector base, and different and new entities emerge that are interesting and important for different reasons. So like, a Pace Gallery who's been around and in the fine art space for millions of years is just as interesting and as important as something that perhaps hasn't been. So
And
yes, many people.
Yeah. Yeah, and yesterday, right, like Museum of Modern Art just announced that they were looking for a Web3 associate. So whereas, I personally thought this was going to take many years to develop, it's increasingly becoming a necessity that there is some sort of strategy and there is some sort of showcase. And these are just, these are grounded physical places. So to have like that visual, are you finding them increasingly receptive?
I am. I mean, I'm finding sort of, yes, increasingly receptive, but also like in the education phase. So they're moving into this space, they're figuring out how to do it properly, and they're figuring out how to do it in the way that works for them.
Right. And I think Pace has, started with their own marketplace. We're seeing partnerships formed. We've
Yes.
seen galleries, invest in markets like Maker's Place. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I pulled myself out of New York City, so I'm not so much like boots on the ground anymore. So I don't really have like a true pulse on this, but it's fascinating how quickly, we've gone, I guess, mainstream. Um, yeah, and do you find just like artists that you have traditionally worked with also more receptive to the medium?
I do, yeah. I mean, I think like there's curiosity about the medium from anybody and everybody. But to my earlier comment, like curiosity is really important, but strategy is even more important, right? So like I find, fine artists that have been creating works for many, many years that sort of just are like, okay, I'm going to take this piece and tokenize it. That to me misses the mark quite a bit, right? Because you're really ignoring who the new collector base is and what's really and truly interesting. So um, I, the slow process of education and figuring out how to do things properly, I'm actually totally behind, and I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I find the hardest part is not getting an artist to mint a piece, but it's going back and teaching them all of like the foundational elements of crypto that you need to kind of like
Exactly.
manage because, I think one of the largest sticking points, of course, is the, 10% ongoing secondary sales revenue. And that is something that should be like passed down and inherited, and the maintenance and security of
Hmm.
those private keys is of critical importance. Um, so, I mean, do you find that that is also kind of like a major education gap for a lot of these institutions and we're
Artists.
gonna shut it down here. You both, I have like so much love for you both. You give me so much energy. Super grateful for what you're both doing. How about like share with us some final words, some last thoughts, and where everybody can find you?
Final words. I mean, thank you so much. This has been an absolute treat. Um, you are always so very kind and generous of your time, and it is much appreciated.
It's my pleasure. Yeah.
God, final words. I mean, I feel like I have to say that I am like eternally grateful for Scott, because he is the reason why I am here, and how I have found my path into this space. And it is an absolute pleasure, and I enjoy every second, and I'm looking forward to enjoying every single second in the future. And you can find me on Twitter or Jackie at lagoframe.com, or I won't
Spell
give you my phone
Jackie.
number because that's weird, but it's JACKIE at lagoframe, you know how to spell that.com.
I think I'll follow in Jackie's lead. One, saying thank you for the time here today. Colborn, you're,
Thank you guys.
it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Yeah. And Jackie, thank you for that. That was nice to hear, and I appreciate that. Obviously, Lago would not be the same without you. So without getting too much into the love fest here of how much we like each other, I'm really excited for the ecosystem. I'm really excited to see how art will change once artists think about the engagement, not just the visual aspect. Um, I'm excited for collectors to start diversifying their portfolios into minted works of art. I'm excited for people sitting around a table and like enjoying their Lago frame and getting their friends excited about it, and having them enter the space. So I'm looking forward to one day just walking on the street randomly and hearing people talking about Lago, and how they experience this new piece of work, or maybe how they experience like an old Picasso in a new way, or maybe like, who knows, like whatever is going to happen in this world. I can't predict it. I'm just excited to see where it goes. And, you know, everyone that's listening in the future of this podcast and video and the conversation is all having their hands and making that a reality. So thank you, viewers and listeners. I appreciate you and everything you're doing to make this a reality.
Yeah, so much love for all of the things that are going on. I think the energy you guys bring is totally, totally infectious. I'll tell people, like, get your art off the computer screen, get it off your phone, get it into a frame, sit with it in your home, dig into the depths of the pixels, and live with it. It's so important to begin to live with, to experience, to share with others. And we'll sign off here. I'm Colborn Bell, Museum of Crypto. Thank you so much to DMINTI and Jackie and Scott.
Breaking news. Breaking news.